What's going on, everyone? Alex here with the Untethered Man. The light is dimming here in Krakow, Poland, although this phone is doing a good job of keeping the light up. It's much more dark in reality. And as you can see, we are deep into the autumn here. The leaves are on the ground. It's a nice vibe, and I wanted to use this as an opportunity to discuss an interesting distinction that I thought you guys would find valuable, and that's the distinction between what makes a mind immature and what makes a mind mature. What's the difference? What's the big difference? For me, it comes down to one thing, one interesting differentiator between the mature mind and the immature mind. Now, the immature side of me is responding to this ambulance in the distance and wants to throw my phone in the air and get really angry. Whereas my mature self, my mature mind, is still in it and is staying with the video and is willing to stay with this. I wonder whether that already hints at what the difference is between the mature mind and the immature mind. The big difference for me is how each mind, each state of mind responds to emotion. Now, the immature mind feels emotions and takes those emotions as meaningful representations of what's going on in their lives. So if we're feeling stressed, the immature mind will say, I've got a stressful life. I have stressful circumstances. And they will make meaning out of the feeling of stress that they have in their bodies. Or they might feel frustration, or they might feel anger, or boredom, or whatever it is. And they will project that feeling, that emotion, onto the world around them. That is an immature outlook. So if we feel frustrated, we might say, my life is so frustrating right now. Why do I feel frustrated? Well, it must be this. It must be this project I'm working on. It must be this person in my life. It must be my lack of, oh, the lights have gone on, that's cool. It must be my lack of social interactions. It must be this, it must be that. We project our emotions onto the external, onto the circumstantial. That, for me, is the immature response to our emotional experience. The mature mind, on the other hand, experiences an emotion and takes note of it if he wants to, because he knows that an emotion is a representation not of the external world but of the internal world. The mature mind sees an emotion arise, whether it be frustration, fear, happiness, joy, frustration, and he says, I'm feeling stressed right now, so it must mean that my state of mind is stressed. It must mean that my state of thinking is stressed. That's interesting. I can take note of that, or I can let it float on by. So the mature mind actually makes use of emotion in a very positive way. The mature mind uses emotions to get a gauge on what's happening in his mind at that moment. So if, for example, I fall into a habitual pattern of negative thinking and I tend to feel fearful in certain situations, the immature mind might say, I'm continually anxious in these environments, and therefore I'm an anxious person. My life is giving me anxiety. These situations, these people are giving me anxiety, and therefore I have much more of a sense of being out of control of my life. I have much more of a sense that I'm the victim in all this, and I'm at the mercy of my surroundings. Whereas the mature mind will say, okay, I've got these habits of thought that tend to show up in these places, and it's because I tend to think these things in these places. But it has nothing to do with the place. It has everything to do with my interpretation of what's going on and what thoughts I'm allowing to process in that moment. And when we can see how certain emotions reflect our state of mind rather than reflecting what's happening in our world, there is a very big difference. You can see the difference. Inside our minds is very different to what's going on outside of our skulls. And it's helpful for us, and it's important to know this, because you're going to have a much easier navigation through life, a much more joyous navigation through life, when you realize that everything is coming from your internal. Got a lot of crow activity at the moment. There's always something new, it's something interesting that's going on. Not to mention the Studio Ghibli wolfhound in the background there as well. Lots of interesting stuff happening, but a good indication of how we can very easily be swayed by our surroundings, and we can very easily think that our emotional experience is coming from this, is coming from that, is coming from this. It's actually coming from in here. So if I'm feeling fearful, I might say, oh God, that, you know, my life, like this forest is frightening me. You know, the danger is frightening me. And of course, that's going to make my fear rise even more, because, oh, what else is in the forest? What else is the mystery lurking behind the trees? You know, I'm at the mercy of my surroundings. I don't know who's going to jump out. This is making me even more worried. My heart's starting to palpitate because I've got all these imaginings of what could go on in the forest. Or I could take the mature approach. The other one was the immature approach. I could take the mature approach and say, I've got fearful thinking right now. Let's take a breath. Let's notice that and be okay with it, and maybe even make friends with that. You know, I can make friends with my emotions. I can make friends with my thinking, because it's giving me an indication of what my mind is doing. And when I know that it's just thought, I can relax. I can drop my shoulders. I can go, all right, I'm just having fearful thinking right now, and that's okay. I'm going to look at it from a third person perspective. I'm going to look in on myself, and I'm going to watch my thoughts for a moment. I'm going to feel the feelings that I feel. And as we do that, we see things dissipate. We see the thoughts start to dissolve, because we are immersing ourselves in the realization that these things are not solid. These things are not real. They're just imaginative tools that we use as humans to navigate the world. So just to kind of reiterate the main point here, and I think it's a valid one, because if we can steer our lives on the side of mature, or however you want to label it, again, mature and immature are just subjective terms again, but ultimately, by swaying on the track of mature, we're going to have a more enjoyable, less stressed, more creative, more resourceful life, versus being on the immature side. And the big difference is how the mature mind responds to emotion versus how the immature mind responds to emotion. And the immature mind tends to make a lot of meaning out of the emotions that we feel, and they might feel sad, and they might project that sadness onto the world and say, my life is just not where I want it to be, and, you know, it's a reflection on myself, and it's because I had a difficult upbringing, and, you know, I never had the advantages that other people had, and that's probably why I'm feeling, I mean, I don't really know why I'm feeling sad, but it makes sense. I'm creating meaning out of nothing, really. And because of that, I feel like I'm at the mercy of stuff that I have no control over, and life is kind of unfair in that way, and that's fine. But, you know, I'm going to allow myself to continue to be depressed as life goes on. That's the immature mind, and you'll see this in a lot of people around you who go about their lives as though, you know, they've kind of given up on any sense that they have personal responsibility and ownership in everything that they do and everything that they feel. Whereas the mature mind, the mature approach to living, is realizing that that doesn't have to be the way at all. That our emotions are useful, but in an entirely different way. They give an indication to us. They are signposts that reflect our state of mind so that we know what's going on in our heads. So if we feel fearful, we know that we have fearful thoughts. If we feel stress, we know that we have stressful thoughts in that moment. And that's really useful to know about. Because if we feel terrible, then we know that our minds aren't doing the things that are helpful for us. The thing that we're looking for is resourcefulness, creativity, and to be at ease. That's when we are our most high performing. That's when we can really do our best in the world. That's what the world wants from us. The world doesn't want us to be depressed. So by giving us these emotions, we're able to see and navigate with more of a sense of what's going on, so that we can more easily and more logically and more rationally deal with our own human biology, our own human machinery. So whenever a negative emotion arises, the mature mind says, that's what the state of my mind's doing. Maybe I want to not take this so seriously. Maybe I want to stop thinking so much about this particular thing and, you know, let go a little bit and redirect my attention to what I can do and what's enjoyable in this moment and what's beautiful about this moment. That's the difference for me between the immature mind and the mature mind. I hope that was an interesting and understandable distinction made. If you want to add anything to this conversation, feel free in the comments section below. If you haven't yet signed up for the Untethered Man community, this is something that I'm building at the moment. It's going to be a video course and a workshop, and it's going to introduce other classes and interactive elements, and you guys are going to really benefit from it in a big way, especially if you're looking to reconnect with your inner intuition, wisdom, you know, be happier, be more alive, feel more of a sense of your own kind of masculine consciousness. That's all part of this community that I'm building. Untetheredman.com. You'll see probably a link in the description below. Make sure you register your interest so that you get first dibs on whatever I'm offering, and you hear about the progress of the product and the community and the project early on. Okay guys, if you enjoyed this, do subscribe, do like this video if you liked it, do share it, and I appreciate you guys. See you in the next one.